for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Here.
Councilor Gillibaugh,
Here.
Councilor Fisher,
Present.
Councilor Kennedy,
Here.
Councilor Powers,
Here.
Councilor Reish,
Here.
Councilor Scamperly,
Here.
quorum present.
We have 4 presentations tonight. The first is regarding the 2020 census and will be made by Nicole Jordan, Partnership Specialist, U.S. Census Bureau.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I just want to go through the census. I can see you're very busy. We all know it's coming up mid-March, so I want to let you know how important it is for our community. So the mission is to serve as the nation's leading provider of quality data about people and economy. The purpose is to conduct a census of the population, the people that live in their house, and disseminate the results to the President, the states, and the American people. We want to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. It is the largest statistical agency in the U.S. It conducts more than 130 surveys and programs. So the data that it gathers, it uses it every year. And then in the years ending in 2 and 7, it works on the economic programs. It is mandated by Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution, has been since 1790, and it's done every 10 years. We want to count everybody that's living in the United States. We have a diverse and growing population. We have 330 million people, over 140 million housing units. And I can't express enough that it's confidential and your data is protected and it's safe. So what is the census information used for? Well, it helps determine the number of seats each state has in the U.S. House of Representatives. Defines congressional, state legislative districts, school districts, and voting precincts. And it determines how more than $675 billion in federal funding are spent on infrastructure programs and services each year for the next 10 years. Informs government, business, and community planning and decisions, and provides the business and nonprofit organizations with the critical information for planning decisions. So like I said, your data is always protected. It's protected under Title 13. I took an oath. It's an oath for life. If I go against that, I will go to prison for 5 years and face a $250,000 fine. So we have the best cybersecurity program. Your data is encrypted as soon as you hit the submit button online when you complete your questionnaire. So this is a little roadmap of the census. First, we want to establish where to count. So we want to verify everyone's living address. Then we want to motivate people to respond, and that's what I do. We want to maximize the outreach using traditional and new media. Then we want to count the population. So this year is going to be the first time it's available online, as well as paper form, which will come in your mailbox. You can call in on the phone, and if you don't do any of those, then an enumerator will come to your door and help you fill out your questionnaire. Then we want to get the release, or the results, to the President by December 31st, 2020, and redistricting will be out April 1st, 2021. So of course it comes in many different languages. We do have the 12 non-English languages available by phone, and then we have English and Spanish paper questionnaires, and we also have the 59 video guides for non-English languages. And this is just a slide of the 12 purple languages we offer by phone assistance, and then the gray ones are the video guides. So 2018, we started forming partnerships, recruiting began, and we started forming some complete count committees. 2019, our ACO offices began opening, and 2020, we continue to advertise. Census Day is technically April 1st, but it will start in mid-March and go through until July 31st. Apportionment counts to the president are due December 31st, 2020, and redistricting counts to the states by March 31st, 2021. This is a slide of New York State where our offices are. And we are still hiring. We have field positions for census field supervisors and the enumerators that will be starting in March. You can apply online at 2020census.gov/jobs. And the best part is the rate per hour went up to $20 an hour with 58 cents mileage reimbursement. So if you're looking for a second job to earn a little bit of money for about 3 months, it's great money. You make your own hours. You can work nights, weekends. I mean, $20 an hour, that's wonderful. You don't have to have a car either. You would just miss out on the 58 cents mileage reimbursement. So of course we have had some challenges in the census environment. We've had the constrained fiscal environment, the rapidly changing use of technology, and of course the distrust in the government, therefore declining response rates. Because we need to educate our people and tell them what the census is all about. Not everybody knows what the census is. And we've had our increasingly diverse population. Informal complex living arrangements say we have divorced families. Well, where do I count my kids? You would want to count your kids where they live and sleep most of the time at that address. And then we have our mobile population, the homeless people, our college students. So we want to form partnerships with businesses, governments. You're going to be the trusted voice. Anyone in this room is the trusted voice. We need you to spread the message about the census, educate people, let them know it's confidential, it's safe. Let them know about these employment opportunities of $20 an hour, and that we just want to count everyone that's living in the United States. So this is a list of some of our partners that we like to partner with. And more partners. Some of these listed here would be the hard to count populations that we would really want to focus on. And how do we support our partners? Well, we provide you with everything. We have all the promotional materials. I gave you some materials inside your folders, complete count committee workbook. We have posters. We have drop-in articles, social media articles, and links. And then this website, you can go directly there and you can download anything that you want to use. Some activity examples would be to participate in a complete count committee, host events, and have me do a speaking opportunity at it and discuss anything that has to do with the census in regards to questions, hiring, and share the census message through social media or newsletters. So what is a complete count committee? Well, it can be anybody in this room, anyone that wants to form a small group of 2 to 3 people or bigger. You're going to appoint a chair, identify the individuals, and you can plan a kickoff meeting, and then you can form subcommittees from the committee and target the hard to count populations that you really want to focus on so that we can have an accurate, complete count. And then again, like I said, some subcommittees would want to focus on these harder to target populations and reach out to these specific audiences, devote more of their time to the undercounted. And again, the same activities. Local advertising campaign, print materials, have a website, display it on Facebook, media kickoffs. And then this is a free tool that anyone can use. It's ROAM, it's Response Outreach Area Mapper. It gives you the demographic, socioeconomic status of your community. So here is a picture, I took a snippet of Ogdensburg, and it's running around, along Forbes Street. And the dark blue represents the hard to count population. So in the little snippet, I don't know if you can see the numbers, but the very first thing is a low response score, and it says 20.3%. So that's an estimated response that that population will not self-respond. We want that number to be lower than that. That is too high. In the data here also, often nonprofit organizations or anyone that needs the numbers for surveys uses a lot of the demographic information in this snippet. So it's a really good tool. And it's free. This too is free, the data dissemination program that we have. There's workshops, training sessions. You can go to these two websites. And you can also find data at the American Fact Finder, Census Business Builder, Congressional District, and on the map. And then you can follow us through these as well. And then this is my contact information. Are there any questions?
$20 an hour sounds pretty good. I have some big taxes to pay. You can help with that.
Yeah, $20 an hour.
That is good. That is.
It started out, it was 17 all last year. It went up to 18 the 1st of January, and within 2 days it hit 20. So that is good for here, along with the mileage reimbursement of 58 cents. So, and like I said, you don't have to have a car, because they want to keep everyone in their community so that, you know, they can recognize the faces coming to the door. Makes it that much easier for people to feel safe. But yeah, it's a good rate.
It is good rate. Any discussion? Anyone, any questions? Well, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you very much
thank you very
for this
much.
presentation. Thank you. The next presentation is an update on Ogdensburg Public Library activities from the library board.
Good evening. I will also try to keep this brief. I'm Stephanie Young. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Adult Services Librarian. And our board just asked me to come and give you all an update about the programs that we're running and things like that. So our biggest upcoming event is the Sweetheart Soiree. It's next Saturday, the 8th in the evening, and I hope everyone got an invite to it. It's our second year presenting the event. It was a very big fundraiser for us last year, and from what I heard, everyone who attended had a blast, so come if you can. February, I'd like to highlight, during the February break from school, we're having a dog slider come, and if we're lucky, the dogs will also come. They're very cute too. In April, we're having a poetry open mic, which we've done in the past and which was very well received. So if you want to hear from local artists, or if you have something you want to share yourself, again, please feel free to come. Our spring book sale is in May, the 14th through 23rd. Generally get a lot of people for that. We have some great deals on books, DVDs, CDs, puzzles, that sort of thing. And much further in the future, probably not as far away as we think it is summer reading. This year's theme is Imagine Your Story. I don't have a slate of programs for you yet, but I'll be back in June to give you another update, so I'll have it for you then. And summer reading is very important to counter what's called the summer slide, which is a decrease in literacy level for children during the summer vacation when they might not be reading as much because they're not in class. And it's very important that way. And monthly, of course, we do have, every month we've got 2 to 3 crafting programs for all ages, children to adults. We've got sessions dedicated to one-on-one computer help, movie night, and a free social hour. And of course, we're always open as just a free space for the public to come. We've got just things for children to do. We've got a quiet place for adults to come if they need a break. We've got free computer and Wi-Fi access, and I mentioned puzzles before. We have a very popular puzzle table where people can come individually or with friends and do a puzzle. And we've also just started lending out puzzles so that if people don't like the one that's on offer, they can choose a different one, take it home, do it themselves, and bring it back.
Nice.
Let's see, this month through the end of February, we're also hosting the Historical Commission's Heart Pottery exhibit. And it's got a lot of the history of the shipping and the industry here, and I think it's pretty neat. So if you haven't seen it, come in, check it out. And that is all I have.
Well, thank you. I'm hoping Deb's gonna be back and we're gonna attend your activity, if I have a date, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can come as a singleton, sell single tickets.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie,
Yes.
if the heart pottery comes up missing, I've got it.
Okay.
That's a nice exhibit.
She says in front of all the police departments.
I did want to comment, I think it's good that the library is doing some fundraising, and during budget time, I know Penny, I don't know where she went, there she is. I'm always harping on them about trying to raise some money, and so I think it's a wonderful thing that you guys are doing this. I hope you come up with more and more activities. Another thing that I think would be good in terms of thinking about a budget and maybe some ideas that council or maybe city attorney could throw out there, can we get Sarah educated, especially since we have 4 new guys, and I don't think Nicole was here before last time. I remember one time, I think it was Art Shore was the city manager, and Mike might have been on the board, but we did a walkthrough. We don't have to do a walkthrough, but just educated as to what type of entity the library is as a corporation and its relationship with the city. I think it's very important for understanding our budget and the library's budget and where we stand, and this, it would be very useful, I think, especially to the new councilmen and women.
Yep.
So,
As well as the Remington.
yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
And great job with the,
Thank you. And I should also, I didn't credit, when I say that we're doing these things, the Friends of the Library is actually the one doing all the fundraising, so I just want to give credit
Right,
to them.
right.
To them for
And
putting all
understand
this
that
together.
because of the relationship, you have to have this group do it.
Yeah.
I do plan on giving a donation. I talked about a tree harness for hunting and maybe a little hunter safety kit.
First aid kit.
We'll have that on your auction block. All right.
How to hook up a harness?
How to hook up a harness.
Very,
Thank you.
thank you.
The next presentation is an update on Kelly Park from Tom and Deb Hannon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Before I begin my informal remarks, I just want to recognize Councilor Scamperly and Dan. Nice to see you up and around on the road
Thank
to
you.
recovery. Good to see
I'm a
you.
very lucky man right
Yeah,
now.
glad to see you. Recovery. Anyways, for those that were here for our last presentations, I apologize for the repetition. Debbie and I, as hopefully most of you are aware, are the chairpersons for the initiative to rename the former Hamilton Park to Kelly Park in honor of Chuck Kelly, Charles W. Kelly, otherwise known as Chuck, that passed away last year. And the committee has been meeting regularly for probably over a year now, or close to a year. And we met last week, and in light of the fact that there were new faces here in council as a result of the most recent election, they felt it was probably important that we provide an update and or make you aware of what we've been doing, and probably more importantly to hopefully get your support for that initiative that was provided by the support of the prior counselors that you had replaced. And certainly we are available for any questions. But again, to summarize, the committee has been working diligently, and we've worked with Sarah, we've worked with her former administrative assistant, Cora Lee, and Matt Curatolo, been very instrumental in helping the committee along. But long and short of it is simply that the committee was formed, renamed the park. The prior council was very supportive of it, and the committee is just wants to be here to, again, communicate the initiative that, as I said, that we've been undertaking, and more importantly, hopefully receive your support in ongoing, because, and that said, we have, you see the diagrams, and for the public, if anybody wants to take a look at, we hired a landscape architect, Ed Basta, Basta's brother, and so we're gonna have bids that'll be going out for construction here within the next week, and we're hopeful to have the groundbreaking sometime in the spring, depending on the weather and that type of thing. But we feel it's a very fitting memorial for his memory, and the public to date has been very enthusiastic with their donations. We had a great breakfast the other day at the KSC. It was very, very well attended, and we were able to generate some good funds, for the memorial. And we went in most recently. We will be we are in the process of reaching out to the commercial establishments within the city to seek donations. But so far, it's going very well. And the other thing I just want to add is that right now we don't know what the final cost will be, but any monies that we do raise over and above the cost of the memorial will be turned over to the city, so to help with the ongoing repair and or upkeep of the park. Again, hopefully there'll be some funds left over, but we certainly don't want the park or the memorial to be any burden on the city if possible, and hopefully that'll be the case. But certainly not looking for any formal resolution or anything to that effect. But again, in full disclosure, we just want to make sure that everyone here, especially the new councilors, the new mayor, is aware of our initiative and hopefully have your support. And certainly are available to answer questions that anybody may have.
Well, thank you for your work, and it looks like that's a beautiful projection on the final project. I like that.
Be a nice compliment in the city.
Yeah. So now it'll be probably on the Hamilton Street side of the park, and probably more across from the church, but maybe the rectory over in that area. And again, we've been working closely with the family, Charles' family, and his wife Therese, and again with the city staff. And again, thankful to them. Certainly appreciate their help. And I think it'll be at the end of the day, it'll be a fitting tribute to in Chuck's honor.
Do you have a projection of what it will cost yet?
No, we really don't. And again, I would suspect, and again, maybe $30,000 to $35,000, or maybe a little bit more. But we've generated a good portion of that to date, and I think we're very confident that we'll be able to certainly be able to pay for it without a problem and have funds over. So we're very hopeful for that.
It goes fast today, anything you do, when it goes fast. I think you're getting with me on, we're gonna put something on the marquee, all right?
Well, again, and I was gonna, I was gonna have you do that for the breakfast we had Sunday, but that's all
Okay,
right.
we did that.
That's all right. Yeah.
Oh, or did I?
Thank you.
I did not put that on the marquee, did I?
That's all right, but I'm not
I
sure or
did-
not, but that's all right. So it was very well attended, and we appreciate your.
Mistaken on that. I think I put it on my Facebook and didn't realize.
It's not a problem.
It's all right. Next time we do a fundraiser. we'll
Next
do
time.
that.
Yeah.
Yes. I need instructions. Well, this is great. Thank you for that.
Any other questions? Anybody have?
No, I'm just excited to see this come to fruition. It's gonna be a great compliment to, the work we have going on within the city as well, that, I think, we're starting to see an upward trend as to where we wanna be as a city and what we'd like to see accomplished, and it's such a fitting memorial for for Chuck and where you're putting it. There's a lot of thought and everything that's gone into this, and we're just appreciative. I know I am that you guys have decided to take this on and step up so that way everyone can enjoy it.
Thanks, Nicole, and again, I certainly would be remiss if I didn't recognize the other committee members has worked diligently and met on a regular basis and put their time in as well as far as their support and their efforts in bringing this to where it is today. And as I left the last meeting when I was here, I would be certainly remiss, especially with an audience here today, that all donations are greatly appreciated and we are welcome, and they can be sent to our attention, at 814 Green Street, Ogdensburg, New York. All right? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Our last presentation is regarding the 5-year projections from City Comptroller Tim Johnson.
I have a presentation on the computer, but I'm not sure where it is. Thank you. Okay, so we did Sarah and I looked at some 5-year projections, but I'd just like to clarify that our normal budget process takes about 4 to 6 months to do 1 year, so we put some numbers together based on some assumptions. The first one is the sewer fund, and that the capital fund project for the wastewater treatment plant is, what happens is that project, once it's done, the debt payment will come into this budget every year until the debt's paid off. So you can see the line that says debt service. It's about the 5th line down on the expenditures. In year 2022, the debt will hit that and will increase it significantly, about $1.2 million a year, the payment on that plant. But we also have some new revenue coming in. I've got some assumptions at the bottom of this. And the overall plan is to try to keep the rates at about a 3% increase a year until it catches up with the debt. We're going to use fund balance that we've been trying to build towards this to keep the rates down. And eventually we'll start paying the fund balance back and get it built back up again over time. And I've got some information from Dank regarding the first assumption. They stated to me they can reduce our operation and maintenance costs by 10% in year 2021. The full new debt payment, like I stated, is going to hit in 2022. Some of our other debt that we currently have will expire in a couple years. We'll have that paid off. And there's some other new revenues. Healed and offsetting revenue begins in 2023. They plan on having septic hauling revenue, which we haven't had in some time, will also be in there. There's a line on the revenue summary that shows new revenue sources starting in 2023, starting at $185,000 and increasing each year at the same rate that the rates increase. And I do show in the first year in 2021 of this on the fund balance line, it shows a negative 340. That's what we hope to actually add to the fund balance that year. So when you add to the fund balance, your expenses are less than your income at the end of the year. And that's what we hope to do. And then the next year, you can see a big allocation of $803,000 from the fund balance to help keep the rate down to 3% a year increase. And I put the rates at the bottom. Projected rates be about $13 to $14 a year increase. The current rate in the year 2020 budget for a household, the flat rate is $430. So, I mean, $430 for someone's sewer is pretty, I mean, some people have different opinions of it, but I know it's probably about a third of the cost of most people's cable and internet bills in their house, but, but at the same time, we're also correcting a lot of problems at the plant, and that's not shown in this budget projection. This is just the operating budget, so, Dank will have to discuss those things with you if you have questions on those. Is there any questions on this budget?
Yes. I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm just trying to follow
Oh, yeah,
parliamentary
no,
procedure.
Sure.
So, the new revenue sources, this is what's committed so far?
Yes.
Okay, and we were expecting, of course, to position ourselves with this plant to be able to take on a whole lot more, right?
Correct.
Including heavy industry and things of that nature?
Yes.
Okay, and I guess that's my only question, so, thank you.
Yeah, and you potentially have more outside users too, so it'll be prepared as far as I know. So that's what I've been told. Any other questions?
How long are the debt payments for, Tim, and bonds?
The new debt payments,
Yes.
it's a 30-year loan. There's two 30-year loans. One's a 0% loan, and the other one is a 1.65% subsidized loan.
The 0% is a $20
$20
million
million,
loan.
correct. The other, the 1.65% loan, I believe is like 12 million something, 12.7 million.
I think it's 5, but I'm not being mistaken.
We've got 2 grants for the project that are 5 million each.
Mm-hmm.
I know from looking at the budget, there's 2 grants for 5 million each. There's a $20 million loan at 0% for 30 years. There's a subsidized loan that's like 12.7 million.
It's 12,740,958
That's at
is the subsidized
1.65?
one. Yeah,
Yes,
Okay.
it's at a
the
1.6.
1.65.
Yeah, that's assuming you use all the loan money.
And our fund balance is around 2 million right now?
It's, yeah, it's 2 point something, as of the end of year 18. I brought the year end 18 fund balance. In the sewer fund, we finished year 18 at 2.27 million in fund balance, and if we can, hopefully, once I start the books for closeout of 19, we hope to add to that, and also in 2020, will help keep the fund balance up so we can start taking big chunks out to keep the rate low, and then we don't want to completely deplete the fund balance, because you have to still have a fund balance in the case of emergencies and so forth. In case of, like, say, a sewer line breaks, it's because it's the whole sewer fund, it's not just the plant. It's all the sewer lines, all that type of stuff. Any other questions?
No, I appreciate the project budget cost certification. That's light on the whole.
Okay, we move on to the water fund. Water fund is very similar. So we don't have any major project going on here, like the sewer fund. I did build in some debt payment. We do have some prior year's debts that are in the debt service payments. The debt service line is $67,000. So in the year 2022, I built in case we did some type of project And typically when a project starts, we may have to go out and borrow a temporary borrowing called a ban. And then you're required to make a payment on that ban, at least minimally a payment, or pay the whole thing. So I just assumed a payment in there in case we needed to do a project, in case, like, say, a water line, we had an issue with a water line somewhere, or maybe something with the plant itself, and we didn't have the cash. This is just kind of plans to maybe, have that just in case, and still do a 2% a year rate increase. I put the rates at the bottom. There is no new sources of revenue at this point. It's not like the sewer plant project in that sense. So it's pretty straightforward. Just assumed all the contractual settlements, all positions are in all these budgets that we currently have in 2020. So, is there any questions on that budget? Okay. So now we move into the general fund. The general fund, per council resolution, had some restrictions to it, which was no increase in assessments, no increase in other revenues. So, this is a 2-page document because assessments factor into it, and I had to show how that calculation worked on the next page. But for this page, we just assumed all normal wage increases and contractual settlements. Only the normal debt payments that we currently have are in here. And we had a fund balance allocation in the 2020 budget of $136,000. I kept that in each year. That's our first fund balance allocation that we've had in the last few years. This is the first time we've had one. We've been trying to build the fund balance because that's a very big sticking point with Moody's Investor Service, who reviews our credit rating every year. And they tanked our credit rating a couple years ago because there was no fund balance. The year Sarah and I took over, we came in and the fund balance in year 16 went down to almost nothing. So the last 2 years we've been trying to build the fund balance. Moody's has recognized that. They gave us a positive outlook last rating. They'll rate us again this June, and we hopefully we'll build it again a little bit. As long as they see that positive fund balance, that means they're thinking, well, you've got reserves in case of any emergencies. So that's part of the equation of trying to keep a healthy fund balance, which we've been trying to do, because Moody's Investor Service will affect debt for any project no matter what fund it is. It's water fund, sewer fund, even the library if they run through our books, some of their stuff. So we've been working hard on that, trying to get back to a better bond rating, which helps your interest rates, just like your credit report for your own personal home, your own personal finances. So you want to maintain a good credit rating to get the best interest rates and you actually get more investors want to bid on your debt projects, according to our investor service, with a better outlook. The worse your rating, the less attractive people want to invest money in your projects. So anyway, I put the assumptions at the bottom. There's no assessment increases, no revenue other than the tax levy. Same fund balance allocation 2020 budget, only existing long-term debt, normal annual debt payments, and the same contractual settlements, wages, fringes, and so forth. All positions are in this that currently exist in the 2020 budget. Do you have any questions on that page?
So the increases in the tax levies is that new construction?
Increases in the tax levy? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Well, the tax levy is a revenue. So when, as per the instructions of the resolution, there's no new revenues for anything else, and no increase in fund balance allocation is also considered a revenue for budget purposes. So I left those the same. So the difference is the inflationary. I built in some inflationary estimates in some of the contractual lines. so forth, and our contractual settlements for fringes and so forth. I estimated some of the fringe benefits best I could. So that would increase your expenditure line, and you subtract out your other revenues and your fund balance. That gives you what fund balance you would need if you don't have any other revenues.
So how does that get you to the tax levy?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Yes, that gets you to the tax level.
Okay.
So I put on the amount of the levy increase each year. It's a little 500,000 each year, based on those assumptions. So the next,
There's an inverse relationship there.
yeah.
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 Okay.
So the next page shows how the tax rates are arrived at. So the top part of this is the assessed taxable value of our property. So I left it at the 285 million, which is a current, this past year's budget was built on each year. And then, so we carry over the general fund appropriations, which is the expenditures basically, and we subtract out the other revenues to get back to the levy. And then you take the levy and you take the assessed valuation divided by 1,000 and divide that into the levy to get the rate. So it shows the rate that you would need if you had no other revenues, no allocation of fund balance beyond what we're already doing. And I did put some comments at the bottom that the assessed valuation has a negative impact on the tax rate. If the, I know the assessor had mentioned to me recently, there's like 3 new houses that were recently built that'll go on the roll for the new year. Well, that'll increase the assessment tax base. So that helps keep the tax rate down when you're adding assessed properties to the taxable assessments.
That's right. So you're basically adding the expenditures, but you're not adding an increased revenue. And so that's like saying nobody's gonna build, nobody's gonna put a porch on, nobody's gonna put a garage on, nobody's gonna do anything to raise their value of their homes.
Right.
I always felt Ogdensburg was, the whole tax system was kind of messed up. If you look at some other towns, it seems like the assessed value of the houses is higher. So when you sell them, the value of the house is higher, but ours is lower, but our tax rate's high. And it's almost the reverse effect. And I think this is what we're trying to change, is we're trying to create value of houses and things like that to be a little higher so that we can reduce the tax rate.
But every time you raise the assessment, you're also giving $26 per thousand to the school.
Oh, yeah.
And $10
Oh, yeah.
per thousand to the county.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, so for Ogdensburg
Right.
to get their 20, the citizens are burdened
Right.
with, 57.
But if you raise the assessment, then all those rates would go down, because they're still dealing with the same budget, or obviously with their expenditures. I mean, this projection is with expenditures, but not an increase in revenue.
I think Tim nailed it. We need more homes built.
Oh, yeah.
More homes built, and then, like you said, more homes restored. So we get
Businesses.
legitimate increases rather than just going around, your house is gonna be more, your house is gonna be more. Even if you haven't done anything to it, we need to have some homes built, and we need to have homes improved, and that's what we really,
And I think also there's a lopsidedness in the current system. Some people complain that their house, let's say, is next door to another house, and their house is valued at $150,000, but the house next door looks better and it's got a garage, and they're valued at $60,000. And so this is some of the things we're trying to get the new assessor to try and consider, and sort of create an equal playing field across the entire city. And so that, and this is what I'm hoping you guys want to join in on,
Yeah.
and try and all get on the same page here, that this is what we've been trying to do for a few years. Is Sue's been doing a good job, you know, so many neighborhoods a year trying to create a better system that's a little more equal.
I'd like to see focus on properties that have just somehow been missed for 10 years and not had that increase, while other people in that time may have had 2
And I think
or
she,
more
yeah, I think
increase.
that's
I
one of
think
her
that's what
objectives.
she's working on. And, because, you know, for whatever reason, they've been missed, and we need to catch them up, and so they can pay their share.
Yeah.
But,
We had a lot of citizens come here and complain about that years ago, and,
I heard people
So-
complain this year.
right,
Like, one guy was really complaining.
I think that's what Sue's trying to do, is,
Yeah,
she's doing a good job.
yeah.
I think this needs to be for, you know, one discussion here.
Okay.
For down the road. Presentation
Stick to the
here.
topic.
Okay.
Trying to-
I
Um,
did give you information last week on, what she has done over the past
Yeah.
few years, so, that'll tell you how many years it's been since, a property may have been looked at.
Right.
Tim, in regard to health insurance, there was talk of a 25% increase, I guess this year and next year. I know you saved some money, through the contracts. So does this take, your expenses take into, is it like a 3% or is it a?
Well, the 25% was where we started prior to the settlement of the contracts. With the settlement of the contracts, renegotiating with all the unions, higher deductible plan and also a higher buyout, which actually got more employees off the plan. Our health insurance consultant said they're looking at a 7.5 to 8.5% rough increase, which I factored in that number.
Is that a year?
Yes. Well, we don't know because it's all just been settled, so maybe it'll save even better and more over time. And that's just with our active employees and employees that aren't on Medicare. Our Medicare, we switched to a different plan, and that's about a third of the cost of that, the Excellus plan.
Tim, as far as the health insurance, obviously that adjusts every year nationally, but
Yeah,
with that being said, also the opt-in and out is annually, correct,
correct.
for an employee?
Yeah, and
So
I think we
that could be a
provided a
constant
chart.
moving target.
Yeah, we provided a chart for that opt-out. We're saving over like around $430,000 on that, so that was a huge savings there.
So the financial restructuring board, if I remember right, said we'd reach our New York State constitutional tax limit, 23?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was, at the time that they said it, it was a little bit concerning. But I think based on the things we've done to date, we've been able to move it back a little. I mean, the calculation has actually dropped down rather than being up at the level it was when we first took over.
So we're at about 85%. Do you know what that number is in terms of the
Well,
tax?
actually, the next chart, actually, I put that in here to talk about that.
Okay.
So you'd asked about how the wastewater treatment plant impacts our constitutional tax limit. Funny enough, though, any debt for our water projects or sewer projects, even the library projects, helps our constitutional tax limit, even though taxes are in general fund. So the first slide, I give you 3 slides in this. This current slide is just how it is in our 2020 budget. And the very bottom number is the number at the constitutional tax limit, it's 84.53%. We've actually lowered it the last couple of years. It was close to like 88% we were at it. But what I wanted to point out is also the assessments impact this, because it's a 5-year assessed value, factors into, if you do a rough, at the top here, 2% of the 5-year average, that gives you your constitutional tax limit number. Then from there, we can deduct certain debt payments, certain equipment, capital improvements, and that's what we've been able to do to keep ourselves under the constitutional tax. And if we didn't have some of the debt projects we have, or debt payments of the projects, or the investing in capital equipment, trucks, plows, you know, improvements to our buildings, we would be over the constitutional tax limit. So you want to know how the wastewater treatment plant project impacted it, so I highlighted the area in yellow, because right now it shows wastewater treatment plant debt sewer at the top of that yellow line, it's all zeros. Because that's how it is in the 2020 budget, because we haven't had a debt payment yet on that, because right now everything's been done through a grant so far. So if I go to the next page, in scenario number 1, so we're looking at a first year payment on, I think it was year 2023 when that debt payment kicked in, or 2022. It's a $1.2 million debt payment. Now, if we just put this into this equation, I just stuck it all under principal, I didn't break out the 1.65% interest. That's the payment for 1 year. If we had fully used all the loans, both loans, so that's the max number. So I plugged those numbers in and I adjusted how the equation, so you're not actually allowed to exclude any of that debt, because the bottom of that yellow line, the box on the right is 0. So what they do is they tell you to add it in, then on another schedule you have to back it back out. So you actually can't lower your constitutional tax limit with that debt payment, right? So if you go to the next slide, this is scenario number 2. Now this is how I have it planned in our 5-year projection plan. We're doing a fund balance allocation. So I plugged the same debt number in, the 1.2 million, but the numbers below, it's actually on, it's called Schedule A, if you see Schedule A on there, it's about the 3rd line down. You can back out the fund balance that we're gonna add towards that payment. So we're increasing our rates 3%, and we're also applying fund balance of $803,000. Well, we can deduct that $803,000, so at the bottom number on the right, we've lowered our constitutional tax limit to 70% from 84.5%. So that's kind of what we've been planning on trying to do, is get that number down, because we know we have this big project, and and that helps everything. Moody's will look at that and say, wow, you guys are doing something right, you know, and we're fixing the project, you know, the plant, you know, a lot of things, you know, not everything's perfect, but we're striding towards that. So, do you have any questions?
But generally, using fund balance to pay for your bonds is not the best case scenario. It's
well, in this case,
it's better if you have revenue to pay those than.
sure.
Yeah.
But we're actually going to use the fund balance until the rate gets to a point where we don't have to use the fund balance.
That's why the schedule of rate increases?
Yeah,
You're not really equating a whole lot of revenue into this as well.
no,
So any revenues is just,
just what Dank projects for the Hewelton project, basically in the septic hall.
And if we get more, it takes it down even farther, or we don't have to raise the rates so much.
Correct.
Right, so it depends on how we market this
Yeah.
over the next 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, there's always talk of other towns that wanna come in, you know, possibly another village. I mean, it's out there, it's potential.
So it looks good from the lowering the percent of the tax limitation, but you're using fund balance.
But it's planned. It was planned that way,
Yeah, okay. And their exclusions, yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, or?
I just want to say thank you for the time and effort that went into this. I know it was a considerable amount of your time and you.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work.
Appreciate it, Tim. Thank you.
good work.
Tonight we have 2 public hearings. The first is regarding an ordinance to license the use of municipal property by Forgis Realty LLC. It's going to be bill number 8, and I will open that to public hearing now. If anyone would like to come and speak regarding the public hearing, please come down to the microphone and you have 5 minutes to speak. Anyone? I'll declare this public hearing closed, and just use my gavel. The second public hearing is regarding an ordinance amending Article 4 entitled Expenses. City-owned vehicles, AR-28, entitled Travel Expenses, Reimbursement of the Administrative Regulations of the City of Ogdensburg. It is going to be Bill number 9, and I will open that public hearing up now. If anyone would like to speak regarding the public hearing, please come down to the microphone, and you have 5 minutes to speak. I'll declare the public hearing closed, and tap my gavel again. And this brings us to personal appearance. If anyone would like to address the council, please come down to the microphone, and you'll have 5 minutes.
I'm here to speak against the resolution to withdraw funding from the extension of the Maple City Trail. My name is Gary Hammond, and I've been a resident of Ogdensburg for over 10 years. I grew up in Hewelton and started my family in Lisbon before moving to the city. I'm a local business owner, continuing the family business my father started in Ogdensburg over 36 years ago. I am vice chairman of both the Ogdensburg Growth Fund and the Ogdensburg Land Bank. I'm a member of Ogdensburg's Complete Streets Active Living Task Force and one of the founders of CGSW Racing, a not-for-profit group whose mission here in town and purpose is getting the North Country moving. Council should be well versed on the many years of effort put into making this Maple City Trail extension a reality. It's been included in planning documents since 2004 and reaffirmed in programs again in 2013 and 2015, including the region-wide Oswegatchie Blue Ray Trail Plan. I'm very aware of the financial difficulties the city is facing, but this multi-million-dollar project has little, if any, cost to the city. Local funding, which can be accomplished with in-kind services, is already below $50,000, less than 2% of overall expenses. The possibility of further grants could lead to zero cost for the city, as mentioned in a June 2017 article in the North Country Now. To throw away 16 years and 98 to 100% of these funds for this project is extremely short-sighted and more costly to the city than completing this community enhancement. Multiple studies have shown key economic benefits for trails. Greenways and trails bring economic benefits to New York, as studied by the Business Council of New York State, highlights many of these. Business leaders say quality of life issues are highly important when deciding where to locate a new factory or office. Trails enrich overall quality of a community, making it a more desirable place to live. If we want to attract new businesses in Ogdensburg, we have to consider all factors that could entice a company to locate here and expand the Maple City Trail could be beneficial to that. Homeowners ranked walking and bicycling in the past third among 42 features they found important. As the Ogdensburg Land Bank works to improve our housing stock and the city strives to get vacant properties back on the tax roll, this trail extension can be a major selling point to bring new homeowners into the city and contribute to the tax base. Trails provide good return on investment. A study of Maryland's North Central Rail Trail found the state received $303,000 a year in trail-related tax income, while trail management and maintenance costs were $192,000. Obviously, these numbers won't apply to the Maple City Trail, but are encouraging that overall income exceeds expenses by 27% of the trails annually. The economic benefits of trails, a study by the American Hiking Association, found in a survey that 73% of Denver area real estate agents believed a home near a trail would be easier to sell. 29% of those living near a trail said a trail influenced the purchase of their home. This is another significant statistic to help home sales in Ogdensburg if the Maple City Trail is expanded and enhanced. Trails reduce medical costs by encouraging exercise and other healthy outdoor activity. A National Park Survey study compared people who led sedentary lifestyles to those who exercise regularly. The people who exercise filed 14% fewer health care claims, spent 30% fewer days in the hospital, and had 41% fewer claims greater than $5,000. Trail options such as the Maple City Trail extension give people more access and more choice to lead a healthy lifestyle. These actions could directly contribute to controlling not only the cost of city health care, but costs locally and regionally as well. Safe places to walk or ride are critical given rising pedestrian and bicycle fatalities and serious injuries. Pedestrian traffic deaths alone represent 15% of total fatalities, a 35% increase over the last decade. Having safe, traffic-free trails is critical to the safety of families in Ogdensburg who want to get out and be active. Anecdotally, when my wife and I travel, we always search out trails to explore, whether it be in Cornwall or Brockville, Burlington, Vermont, or Ottawa. We either bring or rent bikes to enjoy the many trails these communities have. And while we're there, we'll have lunch or dinner, maybe even take in a movie. And also, possibly spend the night in a hotel. Well, on a map, this expansion looks small. Remember, the overall costs are even smaller. Imagine someone planning a day in Ogdensburg, visiting the Remington, enjoying the Greenbelt, taking in lunch at Hosmer's Marina, walking around the Maple City Trail extension, back down into State Street, where they could grab an ice-cold Pepsi or maybe a slice of pizza before heading back to the room at the Sherman Inn for the night. This could be just the beginning of making Ogdensburg a regional hub to explore the Maple City Trail and others that can grow from it. There are too many benefits to deny this opportunity we have before us now. You cannot pass this resolution to withdraw funds from the Maple City Trail expansion if you're serious about improving Ogdensburg and bringing it back to its glory from days gone by. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council?
Good evening. I'm Laura Pearson. I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Ogdensburg Chamber of Commerce. And I'm here to speak about the Major League Fishing Tournament that is hopefully going to be here in June. I would like to encourage the council members to put money into the budget or to approve the budget that's already been in place for the $60,000. The sponsorship fee is $60,000, but we're only asking the city for $50,000. It is estimated that this event will inject approximately $90,000 into Ogdensburg area economy. This is a conservative estimate based on only 180 people staying overnight, anglers, families, and the Major League Fishing support staff, using 90 rooms for an average of 5 nights each. This demand could be easily met entirely by the Ogdensburg lodging stock, meaning that they will be staying and doing business in Ogdensburg for the duration of the tournament. The estimate is also conservatively plans for only 3,500 attendees to events throughout the city over the 4 days, with only 25% of them coming from outside of the county. The $90,000 in impact includes approximately $63,000 in overnight stays and $27,000 in day trips spent on gas, food, and retail. This event impact analysis is based on a conservative $80 room night and $90 per day per party 3 people spend. I would also like to mention to the council that this bass fishing tournament will be on national TV. That means that Ogdensburg will be seen nationally. We cannot put a price tag on what that will bring to the city. We have been talking about the different events that we will do, things that we will do to bring families down to the Greenbelt during this fishing tournament. We've got great ideas. This would be great for the city. We want to improve the city. We want these fishermen, these anglers and their families to look at Ogdensburg as a potential vacation spot or move here and work here, because there's great things that can be happening in Ogdensburg. But we need your support to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council?
Hi, I'm Brooke Rouse, the Executive Director of the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce. We work very closely with Laura and Matt and Sarah on a number of things. We serve as the tourism promotion agent for the county, so we get state and county funding to promote this county as a destination and attract people from the outside. We also seek additional funds to promote tourism in general and specific areas such as events and fishing tournaments. And so I'm just here to speak in support of this event. It's a tremendous opportunity for the city and the area. We're always very focused on making sure that these events are not just a one-off weekend, but what they do is attracting attention, attracting business, and putting you on the map and driving dollars into your businesses. And so I do hope you will support this event, and we at the County Chamber are here to help in whatever ways that we can. Overall promotion certainly, and making sure that the national television coverage is leveraged in a number of different ways. We recently received a Market New York grant to help additionally leverage that with a larger campaign that will be multi-year and bring that all together. We're also very focused on opportunities to develop manufacturing and other retail lodging related development around the fishing industry here, and we want to be able to show that there's consistent demand, that it's not just a one-off event, but there are large events throughout the summer and throughout the year that can drive business here and around the county. So thank you again, and I'm very happy to answer any questions in the future. A lot of people here know how to get in touch with me, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Stevenson, and I'm here to speak in opposition to the resolution to withdraw the funds for the expansion of the trail. I attended many of the meetings over the last number of years that pertain to this trail and the expansion of it. We had a lot of citizen input that was very favorable. We had students from Clarkson University come over and work with us on this project. And it's a great thing for Ogdensburg. Anytime we can do anything regionally, it shows good partnership with our fellow municipalities, and it expands things. In the National Association of Realtors magazine, On Common Ground, there's an extensive article that tells about the Rails to Trails in Kingston, New York, and how it brings vibrancy, it brings people to the community, and people that want to live, work, and play in the same area. Many times I do tours for the hospital, for other incoming professionals, people that maybe are working in Canton or Potsdam but thinking they want to be closer to the river. They consider that. We come and we do tours. They are so impressed with the trails that go around Fort La Presentation now. And for 3 years before they opened, I promoted those and told them they were coming. They're going to be built. For the last couple of years, I've been promoting the expansion of the Maple City Trail and telling people about how you could loop out and come back on 812. People are very excited about this. So I would hate to see the money be sent back, and I caution you that in 2012, and Andrea could correct me, we sent a grant back to the state to expand the marina. I was not in favor of sending that money back, but we did because of a couple of points on that, hoping that we would get it back. We never did get that money back. So let's not consider repurposing this. Let's look at the grant that's been offered to us today and what our opportunity is today to build this expansive trail. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Alan Rickett. I'm president of Local 1799 IFF. I'm addressing you this evening in regards to having a permanent full-time fire chief in the chief's office 365 days a year. It is a very necessary position. The administrative duties cannot be left to 2 days a week or someone outside the department. For us to continue with any continuity among the 4 shifts, one leader is a must. A fire chief is responsible for equal representation of the department as a whole. The fire chief oversees all operational endeavors of the department, from fire suppression, EMS, rescue, codes and inspections, fire investigation, grant writing, training, and equipment replacement and repair. Also, the chief is a liaison between the city and the fire department and local and state elected officials. It was stated by the council that the hiring freeze was instated so that it would give the new council time to look at how the city operates. The permanent full-time fire chief's position is obviously an essential appointment. The council has stated that the goal is to reduce, or one goal is to reduce the tax burden on the citizens. Promoting within the department is a cost-saving measure, as the city will not be filling a firefighter's position per our new CBA. This move results in 26 members in the union, 27 in the department. When a canvass was conducted, it was reported that there was no applicants. This is not necessarily true. There were no outside applicants. We do have at least one member in the department interested in a permanent full-time chief's position. Local 1799 would appreciate the city council support in appointing a permanent full-time fire chief. One other thing is, I don't know what your plan is for tonight, but in the city charter, it states that we shall have a fire chief. So anything other than having a fire chief would be going against the city charter. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak?
Hi. My name is Bill Hosmer. I live at 507 Elizabeth Street. I had written, intentionally came here to speak on behalf of the bass tournament. But as I was listening to the discussion, something struck me, you said, Mr. Skelly, or Mayor Skelly. The solution to our problems is to build more homes and to bring more business to this community. We continue to look at ways to cut some of the amenities that we have. But if we continue to do that, there's not going to be a reason to build new homes and to put more businesses here. One of the things we look at in the software company I work for is forecasting. And we look at why people locate places, what they're eating, what they're drinking. And one of the #1 things is they want healthy alternatives. They want trail systems to be able to walk. They want to stay healthy these days. And it's just one of the things they look for. And when I look at the cost of expanding the Maple City Trail, while it's put out into the public many times, the city's allocation is over $500,000. When you look at the $250,000 grant that was awarded, the $290,000 the Praise Bridge that was put towards it, the real cost of expanding the trail is only $49,000. And if you're looking at the maintenance, there was a $700,000 grant to repair that bridge and put it into working condition. So the maintenance on that would be minimal for several years, or many years. Probably similar to what we're looking at the walking bridge. The cost for the bass tournament has already been taxed. It was included in the budget last year. It would have zero impact on your tax rate. That $50,000 is already coming off the tax burden for next year. But not only that, the reputation is on the line. When Ogdensburg committed to Major League Fishing, they began advertising. If we pull out of a tournament like that, our word is no good. Why would a business want to locate in Ogdensburg? Why would a business want to come here? I wouldn't if I couldn't believe the word of my government. So I'm asking you to support bringing the Major League Fishing tournament to here. And I'm also asking you to support expanding the trail. Imagine if there was a hotel by the airport where people came, they stayed overnight, they flew out of our airports, they got on that trail, and where does that trail bring them? Downtown, so they can shop in our stores, they can eat at our restaurants, and they will spend their money here. And I'll leave by saying, you can't cut your way out of success. I understand we're a financially distressed community, and these commitments are minimal. Our fund balance, we just heard, was over $2 million. To finish these two projects would be 5% of that fund balance. And actually, since you've already taxed last year the citizens for half of that, it would actually only be 2.5% of your fund balance. So I go back to saying you can't cut your way out of success. There are hard decisions you will have to make, and I understand that, and there will be cuts that need to be made. But if we cut our amenities, we will not have a reason for people to stay here. We will not have a reason for people to come here, and there will be no reason for businesses to relocate here. So I ask you once more to support both of these. Support extending our trail, support bringing this bass tournament here. Because the success of this community can only be achieved by supporting opportunities like these, which will foster more opportunities in the future, which will foster business, which will foster growth in people relocating to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Me again. Tom Hannon, E14 Green Street, Ogdensburg, New York. I really had no intention to speak tonight other than my relationship with Haley Park. But as I stood back here and heard some of the speakers, as far as they came up here during the public appearances, I just wanted to, I guess, put my former city councilor hat on. And I don't necessarily have done any homework as it relates to the fishing derby or as it relates specifically to the trail, and my comments would be more in general. The reality today is that, you know, it's getting new jobs into the city of Ogdensburg. We're bringing manufacturing in, you know, really, to be honest, slim to none. I hate to say that, but that's the reality. The opportunities for the city of Ogdensburg is to nurture the resources that we have that no other community in the area has. Our rivers, you know, the area that we live in. And by expanding the trail and by getting into fishing derbies, we're promoting the tourism. One area the city can benefit from is tourism. That's an area that we have that we can expand on, and we can bring in revenues and hopefully jobs. Manufacturing jobs in the global economy as it is today, it's just not realistic. We have a 2-lane highway that gets us to 81, all right? People are not going to locate a business here to bring their trucks another hour to get on a 2-lane highway. But will they come here for opportunities for trails, for fishing derbies, to utilize the resources we have here in the North Country, to utilize our rivers and the foothills of the Adirondacks? That's where the opportunities are, in my opinion, for the city of Ogdensburg. And as a government, those are what we should be fostering. You know, I made a comment to Councilor Reish a month or two ago, and I said, John, just don't be penny foolish, and you know what it was. I'm sorry, I can't even think of it now. Pound foolish and penny wide, pound foolish. You know, you're saving a few dollars possibly for the maintenance of a trail, but look at the long-term opportunities that trail may take into consideration with a comprehensive plan of, you know, extending trails, other trails, whatever it may be. You know, in the future, don't tie the hands of future councilors and you as councilors in the remainder of your terms, you know, as to what those opportunities may bring. And as Jennifer says, you know, once that money goes, it's not coming back. So yes, you may, if the intent is to save a few dollars, you may do that today. But on a long-term basis, with the money and the time and the effort that's put in to date, you know, to expand that trail, you know, I just don't think necessarily that is necessarily the right thing to do, in my opinion. And I just think that consideration should be given for something, you know, the long-term viability of not only trails, but the economic condition of, you know, Ogdensburg and the greater Ogdensburg community here in the North Country, about the opportunities for, again, repeat myself, tourism. And I think that should be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Anybody? And that brings us to correspondence. Do we have any correspondence?
We have one letter. Mayor and Council, I've lived in Ogdensburg for 14 years, and I've logged thousands of miles walking, running, and biking along the Maple City Trail. I could go on about the importance of the trail to me, but I feel my greater duty is to write on behalf of the children I interact with almost every day as a teacher in the Ogdensburg City School District. In an age of distracted driving, it is crucial that our community provide access to attractive, safe, accessible, and no-cost places designated for recreation. Over the years, I have encountered many students that are using the trail with their families and friends. The school community also utilizes the trail. Every June, students from Adele Elementary take walking field trips to the Remington Museum, Kids Kingdom, and the city pool. Our students access the Maple City Trail at the juncture of Nevin to travel safely to their destinations. The Maple City Trail helps people of all ages incorporate exercise into their routines and shows that our community supports and encourages active lifestyles. Physical activity has a positive impact on cognitive skill, attitude, and academic behavior, all of which are important components of improved academic performance. With social media use at an all-time high and social connectedness at an all-time low, the Maple City Trail provides avenues for shared experiences and conversation, whether it be pedaling next to a friend on a bike or sitting together on the Oswegatchie River bank with a fishing line cast in the water. My students have also shared their encounters with turtles, frogs, blue herons, and deer on the trail. It is incredible that they can experience nature so close with such minimal environmental impact. As you consider the grant funding opportunities for the Maple City Trail, I urge you to see it as more than a paved path, but rather a conduit for safety, better health, relationship building, and unique life experiences for our children. Thank you for your time. Kristen Sutton, speech language pathologist, Dr. C. Grant Medill, Elementary.
2020, the Ogdensburg City Council enacted a hiring freeze, and whereas a vacancy in the position of fire chief occurred on January 21, 2020 due to a retirement, and whereas there is a need to provide administrative continuity in the fire department while the fire chief position remains vacant, now therefore be it resolved that the Ogdensburg City Council concurs with the city manager's plan for addressing the vacancy as follows. 1. An assistant fire chief will receive the temporary designation of acting fire chief while also continuing in his position of assistant fire chief. 2. The assistant fire chief will be compensated for out-of-title work in accordance with the terms and conditions stated in Article 12, entitled Out-of-Title Work of the current collective bargaining agreement between the city and the IAFF. 3. Should any grievances arise, the assistant fire chief will not be required to address them in his capacity as acting fire chief. Instead, any grievances will move to Step 3, as stated in Article 22, entitled Grievance Procedure of the current collective bargaining agreement between the city and the IAFF. 4. The designation of acting fire chief will expire at midnight on April 17, 2020, unless mutually agreed to end it sooner.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Of course. So first of all, why April 17th?
That is the Friday after your first council meeting in April. So presumably something else will take place so that there can be a transition off of this designation and on to something else.
Okay, so hopefully.
What would
Hopeful?
What's this designation?
Well, the what would that be would be an amendment to the hiring freeze to hire a full-time fire chief.
Next question. Can we get an opinion from the attorney as to whether or not a hiring freeze violates Section C9 of the city charter of administration interference? And then my third question is, has the fire department's union, or Local 1799, I believe, have they agreed to this? Have they seen this? Do they?
I have discussed it with several of the members. It is understood to be a temporary situation. We need a fire chief January 22nd. But until there is any movement to amend the hiring freeze, this is the best we can do because it does not violate Article 4, C19, number 2. I am not actually appointing, I'm not actually attempting to appoint a fire chief. I am designating an acting fire chief who does not leave his current job title. So that's why this is phrased the way it is. It is the best I could do to thread the needle between State Civil Service, County Civil Service, State Office of Fire Prevention Control, and the Ogdensburg City Council.
In the January 22nd cutoff, by law, we have to have a fire chief on the books
No, you don't.
By civil service law?
No,
No?
you don't.
But our charter says we do.
Yes. Your charter does.
You do a great job at finding loopholes, sir.
What does civil service law say?
It's hard to know.
I know this.
It's hard to know because there have been several circular discussions. But everybody tells me that this is a matter of the local jurisdiction. And the local jurisdiction has determined that there is a hiring freeze.
Can I get an opinion as to whether or not that falls under the guidelines of a municipality would fall under this, under city designation? I believe a city has to have.
Well, our city charter
By the
says,
charter,
as
far
as Mr.
civil
Ricketts
service-
said, we shall have a fire chief. But it does not state, I mean, I've sent you several different emails on the subject. It doesn't state that the position has to be filled. You have a position of fire chief. It's just not filled right now.
And it needs to be, and that's where we're at, so.
Steve wants to say something.
Your Honor, can I jump in?
Yep.
Couldn't hear you. I just want to go back a little bit so we kind of understand how we got here. The chief qualification bill was passed December 20th of 2018 and took effect January 20th, 2019. City manager and the fire department knew of the requirement changes. Even on the New York State Professional Firefighters Association website, the president of the New York State PFA thanked everybody for all the assistance in passing this much needed law. Today, more than a year has passed, and the city manager has stated that no one from the fire department meets the qualifications for fire chief. Well, it's been stated on December 30th of 2019, the city manager sent a waiver request, Francis Nearly, RE, the fire chief qualifications. 21 days later, Chief Barrow retired. Well, I don't understand why we waited till the 11th hour. And it keeps being stated that the January 6, 2020 hiring freeze is the problem. But I don't believe that's true. The problem we face today is the fact that the city manager and previous fire chief failed to act and ensure that the members of the Ogdensburg Fire Department were provided the proper training in order to qualify the fire chief position. And as far as the charter goes, C-19 at this point supersedes we shall have fire chief, which quote, I quote, in the absence of the appointment of a department head, the city manager shall serve as a department head. There's other options that are they're kind of radical, but it's possible. And this was done in the 90s under city manager John Kroll. He appointed Chief of Police Andrew Wells as assistant city manager. Chief Wells oversaw the fire department during this time period, and Chief Wells was simply paid a stipend, a monetary stipend for filling this position. I believe if we redesignate the assistant city manager title from the current planner back to the chief of police, it'll work. And the reasoning for this is the police chief, Andrew Kennedy, is the most qualified for administrative duties for public safety. I'm sure the four assistant fire chiefs would be willing to work hand in hand with Chief Kennedy. In the absence of the manager, Chief Kennedy would step right in. This is the most common sense approach. As I previously stated, this was done in the 90s under city manager John Kroll, and it worked then and it could work now as a temporary fix. That's it.
I would just add that that's what we asked the city manager to look into in one of our first meetings was, in our efforts, we have one of the highest tax rates of any cities in the entire state of New York. We don't think it's sustainable. If you look at the tax numbers that Tim Johnson put together, I realize there's no revenue associated with them. But you're looking at going from $20 to $30, $1,000 over a 5-year period. That's not sustainable, and no one's gonna live here if the taxes get that high. So we're struggling to save money, and the contracts have already been adopted with very long terms and above normal pay raises. So we're really in a bind as the result of the action to try and find ways to save costs, and that's why we asked Sarah to look into the idea of having a combined police and fire chief, and it's been done in the past, as Steve said. Instead, and we also said maybe we would go back out to civil service to allow someone the opportunity that was interested to apply for it. So those were the two approaches that we were looking at and that we favored.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah. Civil service has, and maybe Mr. Rickett can help me out with this as well. Civil service has made it nearly impossible. I mean, there are many departments throughout the state, from what I understand, that have individuals with a chief missing out of the department that meet the qualifications per civil service.
Well, let me address that. It was not until 7 to 10 days ago that we learned we do have someone who's
eligible.
No. That's what we learned 7 to 10 days ago. We thought we had someone who was eligible because he meets the old minimum quals, and he has passed the test for fire chief. We do not have an eligible list, but nevertheless, if we chose to, we thought we could pick that person, except that all of us learned 7 to 10 days ago that he's not eligible because the eligibility list that he's on was issued after January 1 of 2019. You had to have been on an eligible list January 1 of 2019 in order to be grandfathered and not have to meet these more stringent minimum quals. I don't know why we didn't know that sooner. I can't explain that. I do know that the previous chief and I had been working on this for quite a while. And one of the things that happened, which may make it seem like I didn't do anything until just lately, is that he changed his retirement date several times. So we were working on this. We were in touch with civil service. I don't know why they did not tell us that the other person does not meet the quals, but nevertheless, we were pursuing a waiver so that the retired fire chief could come back. So that's where the issue of the waiver letter comes in. But the issue is, in order to come back after you're retired, you have to have 1 day off where you're off the payroll. So perhaps the issue is, I viewed the hiring freeze resolution way too seriously. I should have just said, oh no, it doesn't apply in this case, he's coming back. But I took it quite seriously, knowing that there's a 1 day gap in which he was not on the payroll, and therefore he can't be brought back unless you do an amendment. Mr. Rickett explained earlier that the person who now suddenly doesn't meet the quals is going to take the last level of training, and hopefully that will be completed in the summer, sometime in the summer. And at that point, we could make him the provisional chief until he takes the civil service test. But again, with the hiring freeze, I can't do that. And finally, to the issue of putting Mr. Chief Kennedy in as the assistant city manager for public safety, the chief and I have discussed that on and off for quite some time. But you can't force someone to do that. He already has quite the full-time job. We can certainly discuss it with him, and he would want to know what your expectations are of him, but you can't just automatically say you're it. There has to be an agreement to that. And before he's going to agree to that, there needs to be a discussion of the expectations. So in the meantime, we are still without a chief. I mean, any of these options can still be pursued, but right now, we need a chief. Now, I understand that the city charter says that in the absence of a department head, the city manager is the department head, but I am totally unqualified to be the fire chief, and everybody knows it. So at some point, when the dust settles on all this, that section of the city charter needs to get changed. But in addition to this, the other factor that's playing into it is I lost the second person in my office, and I'm drowning. I don't need to leave City Hall and go drown down at the fire department too. So I need help. I have a methodology to at least get us through this temporarily while we all work for the permanent solution. And I want to reiterate something that Mr. Ricketts said, which is once the person who now has to go through the third level of training gets through it, let's please not forget that if you promote him, you're not refilling a position in the department, because that's part of the agreed upon collective bargaining agreement that's in place right now. The only other thing I'm going to add to that is if you want to pursue the...
That is new information tonight, though. I think what your proposal was, that was not what your original proposal was. Your original proposal was to bring back the fire chief.
Right.
Which would have cost the city.
Well, it was in the budget. It was part-time.
It's in the budget, but we can still save money. That's the idea, right?
Right. So yeah, point well taken. The only other thing I'd like to say is if you want to, after you hopefully adopt this temporary situation, if you want to keep working on this and you want to have a discussion with Chief Kennedy, I would suggest to you that if he's amenable to this, he would be another assistant city manager. I see no reason to take the designation of assistant city manager away from the city planner.
I guess one of my concerns with Chief Kennedy taking on this role, we already have an understaffed police department that we're not filling. So, I mean, this is a circle of problems that, so it's an angry web we weave of ourselves that the only real solution is getting a fire chief. I can understand in the interim, but long-term goals are what we need to work for.
I think it's a good practical temporary solution. And it's clearly not very long with an April 17th deadline or expiration date. But we see what else we do and talk to Chief Kennedy and look at all the other options that are put on the table tonight. So I think we should just pass it.
I'll support this resolution in the interim, but I have very strong feelings in light of the new criminal justice reform package that's out there that our police department is going to have to deal with as far as bail reform and additional resources in the courtrooms. additional resources with absconders, people that aren't showing up for their court appearances. Now, mind you, this might be one man's opinion, but it's a very strong opinion, and I see it statewide in my role with the Corrections Officers Union, and which doesn't have a huge lie on my members, but it does. But I can see the burden that it's going to have with a man down, with our fire department, or with our police department being a man down, having these additional resources and additional monies, significant monies that are going to come down the pike for, as I said, the bail reform, the court appearances where the people that are charged are not showing up for court, for multitudes of other reasons under this criminal justice reform. I think it'd be an injustice to our police department with a man down to put that burden on the fire chief or the police chief to oversee both agencies in the long term.
Especially when they did such a tremendous job last year, the last couple of years really.
That's not going away either.
With the drug situation in town, and it's a big burden for the chief. A number of years ago when we were consolidating departments, we put more of codes underneath the fire department, and it really added to the fire chief's workload right there. And so that also should be something taken into consideration. The police chief would have to take care of, rather than just the fire department, but the codes, city codes, the codes department. It's something that obviously, if you have the discussion with the chief, then it'll be brought up.
Steve wants to say something.
Jump back in. Okay, what is actually being done to ensure that the members of the fire department are getting training in order to meet these requirements so that they can advance in their own department? Again, 365 days have gone by, and I haven't heard of anything that was trying to get us enough people to give a test to have an eligible list. Is it being done, or are we still waiting, or looking for just temporary fixes all the time?
No, we called for the test. We called for the test.
It's in light of the new information that Sarah shared with us.
Been given the proper ability to have the training. Some of it's they've got the qualifications. If you read it, there's different aspects in it. Some education, some in grades, some time in service. All these things can be added in, and then you need specific training courses that in order to get you to the level of being able to be the fire chief, or be able to qualify to take the test and be promoted. Are these guys, obviously they haven't been given the opportunity over the last year to get the training they need, but are we doing something to get them the training at this point?
Yes, we are. The scheduling of the training is not up to the city, it's up to the state. And the state is offering the training. The third level starts fairly soon and completes in the summer. We're completely at the mercy of the state on the scheduling of the training.
This is applying to other municipalities
Yeah,
as well.
it's
We're not
statewide.
alone in this. This
It's
is
statewide.
applying to other municipalities. I'm sorry, Steve.
Could I get up and say something?
Over the last 2019, I understand scheduling and training, but nobody could be sent to any of that training, knowing that you had a chief that was on teetering on whether or not he was going to stay or leave.
Was the training available
I can't
in
answer
2019?
that. I can't
Was the
answer
training
that.
available in 2019? The third level training?
The training officers here, if you want to let him speak.
Ken, come on down. I'm sorry, Mayor.
It's up to you.
Okay.
Well, yes, come on down.
Okay, so you need to understand, you have to have, there's fire officer 1, 2, and 3. Some of our members that are officers only need fire officer 2. We were all fire officer 1, but we took that training down in New York City. So there was a bridge program that actually meets the state requirement to make us all fire officer 1. At that point, we were allowed to go to fire officer 2. We have recently sent Captain Chuck Irvin down. He is trained to give us the bridge program. So all 8 officers will have fire officer 1, and at that point we will be eligible to take fire officer 2. So we have been working toward that. Unfortunately, all training through New York State has to be approved by the fire chief, or through our department we have to be approved by the fire chief, and we don't currently have one.
So the department has been working on the training
That's
over
correct.
time, knowing that this is coming and everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Sarah can approve that training. though,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Where's the paper? I'll sign it right now.
I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, I'll come down.
And we do have 4 assistant fire chiefs, right?
Yes.
And we have 4 what under that?
Captains.
4 captains under that. So,
Also, if I may, Counselor Fisher, when Chief Wells was the deputy of public safety, we also had a fire chief, Andy Krebs.
that's correct. I think Andy came after that. I think the police chief was there for a year and then Andy came after that.
Oh, yes, come on down, Rick, please.
The police chief he oversaw the department even when Andy Fritz was sworn in to the position. He went on for years. He was in the position for almost 3 or 4 years. I spoke to him personally on the phone yesterday.
I worked under his command as a lieutenant. He was the assistant city manager in charge of public safety, but Andy Fritz was the chief at the time. Chief Wells would not have had the opportunity to be able to run a budget, run the fire department, take care of their training, do the hiring, and take on all those additional responsibilities without the fire chief being there. He's busy enough as a police chief. And I think Chief Kennedy will acknowledge the same thing.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone? Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reese?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read again by City Manager Sarah Purdy.
I'll introduce this. This was my resolution, and it calls for, I had a concern about, I have had a concern for a while about the Maple City Trail extension, because I walked that a lot. I actually wrote the grant, and that's how the Maple City Trail got built when I worked at the city. And I realized the benefits of the trail, the number of people that use it. But I did have a concern about the foundation and just the liability associated with that. There's very shallow water there. I haven't seen the designs. The foundation I know is cut stone block, and the ice has moved those out. I thought it was in very poor condition. I've learned more, and please, Andrea, do come down and give a presentation on it. I'm totally open-minded. I'll tell you that it would be nice if our energies and our monies went into the city of Ogdensburg. Imagine if that had gone into 212 4th Street and we weren't looking at losing a massive downtown building. It would be nice if it went into our roads, our sidewalks. We have miles and miles and miles and miles of sidewalks. We have trails on tax-exempt property down here. We have trails on tax-exempt property down there at the Port Authority. We have a Maple City Trail. It's not like we're deficient on recreation and trails. And it would be nice if our staff's effort and our resources and our money went into other things that perhaps are more important there. Maybe it's not to a couple of you people to talk. So I'm very open-minded. I'm happy to listen to the presentation. I've already read it, and there's a couple of things in there that I was not aware of. I was also told that we had bonded for $400,000 for this project. Is that not the case?
Ben,
Pardon me?
Ben, it never went to a bond. It was just a band anticipation. It was just a short-term borrow. Because that's how we upfront the costs.
Oh.
And then we got reimbursed.
Okay.
So we would have to turn the reimbursement back in.
And I wasn't aware of additional funds for the foundation, and Andrea, were you gonna give a presentation or not?
To speak at the mayor's request.
The resolution hasn't been read. Has it been introduced?
No,
No. So I think the discussion started already before it was introduced.
Yeah, no, I was introducing it. So the resolution was to withdraw and/or reprogram the funding for the extension of the Maple City Trail over the Black Bridge in the town of Oswegatchie, and to city staff to stop work on it and to withdraw the application and to reprogram the funds. So that was it. So, do we have a motion?
You moved it.
Oh, okay, I moved.
You need a
I'll
second.
second.
Okay. Andrea, you want to address the questions?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. First, I'd like to state for the record that at any point in time, any member of the public or council is welcome to come to my office, call the office, or send me an email. I'd be happy to provide you with any information on our current projects or listen to your ideas for future projects. So my office is always open. If you can't meet with me during the hours of 8 to 4, I'm happy to set a time up to meet with you after hours. I have made that pretty clear in the past, but if it wasn't clear, I hope it's abundantly clear this evening that my office is always open, especially to mayor and council.
I hope you return the deputy mayor's phone call when he calls you also.
I did return your phone call, but I also understand that not everybody is in their office at every moment of business day while conducting business work. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you, Mayor and Council, and give you a little bit of background because there were various members of the public that have already spoken in support of the project and covered a lot of what I have prepared for you. I don't need to reiterate it, but I would like to clarify the funding since that does seem to be a little bit of an issue. The city in 2016 submitted an application for federal DOT funding to expand our Maple City Trail. This funding was available at the time through the Transportation Alternatives Program, which is available only for the purposes of extending or creating new trails for non-motorized vehicles. It is not for trail maintenance, it is not for road maintenance, it is not for other infrastructure maintenance or new infrastructure other than, again, the extension of new trails. So the city's proposal to extend the Maple City Trail via the Black Bridge out through a series of easements to 812 was a perfect fit and something that the city had been pursuing since 2006 unsuccessfully. We submitted an application which was successful, and we received just over $1.6 million in federal funding. That provides 80% funding, so it does require a 20% local match, of which right-of-way acquisitions and donations of land can be used to offset that match. So that's where the $290,000 that was mentioned earlier this evening comes into play. The city also at that time submitted a grant application through New York State ESD in the amount of $250,000, which was successful as well, which leaves a remaining fund commitment of $49,000, just over $49,000, that the city has yet to fulfill with grant funds. That we can use a combination of things, including staff, labor, materials, and equipment, as well as seek additional grant funds, particularly from state and federal sources, because the primary funder is federal. So there are lots of opportunities to continue to offset that $49,000 requirement that is outstanding. This is a project that we have also received support mapping and documenting all of the city's sidewalks in the downtown area. We received just under $16,000 from the Health Initiative to do that with Clarkson University, and we did that in an effort to make sure that the sidewalks that the trail was connecting to were in good repair, so that the city could target improvements to our sidewalk network. After completing the bridge inspection in 2017, it was determined that pier number 1 was in pretty poor condition, and our consultant on this project, who is Fisher Associates out of Rochester, recommended that we seek additional funding specifically to address the recommended repairs to pier 1. There was support from the regional DOT office in New York State to seek those funds, and we submitted an application in 2018, which again was successful, and we received just over $700,000 specifically to address the needed repairs of Pier 1. So in total, again, same funding source, so the city will receive 80% federal funds. It does require a 20% match. The $49,000 that we talked about is the uncommitted gap in funding at this point in time that can be offset by a cash contribution. It can be offset by labor, equipment, materials, or additional grants. I did provide you a pretty extensive timeline. I will say too, just to give everybody a little bit of an update as to where we are with this project, the preliminary design report, the final design report was submitted to the city in September of 2019, and we couldn't sign off on that because we were in the process of accepting the supplemental funding that we received in 2019, which we just received all of our documentation on that today. So we will be able to, assuming this resolution is not approved, go forward with accepting the final design recommendations and moving on to the next step. We have had public meetings on this from the very beginning, from the time of submitting the application, as well as in September of 2018, where the preliminary design was presented to the public. There have been a series of public news releases on it, and we've received pretty significant public support.
So you received a grant for an additional $712,000 just for Pier 1?
Correct.
And there's 2 piers?
Pier 1 is the pier that has structural damage. The other pier does not.
Okay. So it's now a $2.6 million project?
Yes.
Okay. And the estimates so far for the rehabilitation of the bridge and everything with design and the easements,
Both applications require engineer's estimates as part of a complete application, and both applications have to be reviewed by the DOT office, our regional DOT office, which is in Watertown. They made adjustments to our initial budget because they did not think that we had enough in our contingency line or in our design line. So I feel pretty confident in the numbers that have been presented. They've been reviewed both by the state and federal DOT agencies, who presumably know much more about bridge design than I do. And ultimately, we won't know what it will cost until it goes out to bid, which is the next big part of the process at this point.
So if Pier 2 ice hits it or something, we could face another major expansion, given its age.
I'm sure if an iceberg comes down the Oswegatchie and damages Pier 2, we'll be looking at additional costs.
That's what happened in Pier 1. I don't think it was an iceberg. I think it was Oswegatchie River ice.
There was time.
It's no different than the old footbridge, the old green bridge, those piers and those pilings got just deteriorated with water, but.
Yeah, and they incurred the cost of
Just got a clean bill of health here for
building a new bridge, yeah.
engineers and DOT.
I think like anything, we could sit here and we could go around and around all day on what ifs, but I think you deal with what's in the plate in front of you right now. We have the ability to repair what needs to be repaired to utilize this great area, and if we choose not to do that, I think we're making a large mistake.
I agree, Nicole. I think the arguments that were laid out in front of us and the time that this community has invested in creating this trail system to promote Ogdensburg and keep us economically healthy and vibrant, and all those words that were used tonight, I can't imagine getting a $2.6 million grant and then just giving it away. for a little bit of labor and time out of Ogdensburg.
The money's in place, so
Yeah.
go for it.
Right, and we're gonna have to pay back $300,000 that we spent on engineering design if we do get it up. So,
It's always okay if people disagree, and
Yep, absolutely.
I'm gonna vote yes for it, because I really strongly believe that, like I said, our efforts and our resources should go into, you know, the issues and the buildings that we have, the vacant properties, into things like that. And also from a liability standpoint, I'm very concerned that you're gonna have ongoing maintenance costs that are the responsibility of all of us, and we have very high taxes, so I'm gonna vote yes.
Well, it's unfortunate, but the federal government, the state government, they give us what they wanna give us, and not always what we need. And, but the money's in place, and it'll be a great thing for the community, and so, is everyone ready to vote? Any more discussion?
I am.
Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Reese?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
No.
Mayor Skelly?
No.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
No.
Counselor Powers?
No.
Approved.
No.
No,
I'm
it's
sorry,
not approved.
denied. I'm sorry, denied. My bad. Sorry.
We'll allow one.
Thank you. It's that one. It's
Good job
late.
getting that over the line, Andrea.
The next item of business will also be read by City Manager Sarah Cody, please.
A resolution to withdraw the Restore New York grant application for the demolition of 212 Ford Street. Whereas the city of Ogdensburg is desirous of saving its historic structures, and whereas it shall be the policy of the city of Ogdensburg to make every effort conceivably possible to preserve its historic buildings for the betterment of the community, its heritage, history, and culture, and whereas the city applied for a $500,000 Restore New York grant for the proposed demolition of 212 Ford Street due to its deteriorating condition, and whereas the makeup of the council in the city of Ogdensburg has changed and wishes to take a new approach to preserve this historic building, now therefore be it resolved that staff is hereby instructed to repeal the Restore NY grant for the demolition of 212 Ford Street, and be it further resolved that staff is hereby directed to commence work on finding grant funding to stabilize and restore this building so it can be repurposed and put into productive use in Ogdensburg downtown, and be it further resolved that this shall be a priority project for staff and that funding should be sought through the Restore New York program, North Country Regional Economic Development Council, the Downtown Revitalization Initiative effort, and any and all other funding sources that may be available for the historic preservation of this building.
I'll make that motion.
I'm not actually sure how this building is still standing.
Did somebody second it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, looking at the pictures you've been supplied with, and I've walked that building many times, I just can't see how what would go into saving that building. I can't see it from the safety aspect of leaving that building standing and letting my kid walk down the street and hopefully a brick doesn't fall on it. Like this building is beyond repair.
I have to disagree with you there. I owned that building for 10 years. When I bought it in '93, it was a lot worse than it is right now. The building's solid. The walls are 2 feet thick. They're all stone.
There's no roof on it.
There's a roof on it. I put a new roof on it.
There's not a roof on it now.
Oh, that's a little side part. That's nothing. That used to be where the thing there for the water cooler was. I'm talking the main roof. The main roof's not that bad, believe me. That's just a little part. I spent a lot of money
Are
on
you
that building.
looking to buy it?
No, I bought it once.
I was thinking to buy it back.
No, yeah, I'll give you $1 for it.
Really?
Is that you can have it.
Yeah.
this.
If we amend this, then he's gonna.
You're gonna spend $700,000, $800,000 to tear it down. You can spend less than that and fix it.
In all seriousness, you know, this was acquired in 2010, and, you know, people and communities react differently. I know Potsdam had a major fire in their downtown, and there wasn't a roof on that building either. That community came together, and they quickly came together, and they worked very hard to obtain grant funding to restore that, because that's how important their historic buildings and their downtown is to them. And we don't have much of a downtown left. And I feel very strongly that, you know, efforts should have been made over the years to obtain funding for this, and effort should have gone into this as a huge building in our downtown that has potential. I mean, we can all give up and not do anything and let buildings crumble and apply for Restore New York money to tear them down. I'm not a defeatist, and I feel very strongly that we should take a different approach to things. And that's why I introduced this resolution. And I fully support it, and our efforts should go into restoring it. That's all I have to say.
I'm opposed to the resolution based off the simple fact that that building, as Councilor Dillabaugh mentioned, has changed hands numerous times, and in an effort to bring that building back around through various people who have purchased it, and unfortunately couldn't make a go of it, has had that building fall into complete disrepair. And I think it'd be I mean, without a plan going forward and having that building in the shape that it's in, I feel strongly that it needs to come down and to avoid any safety hazard in that city. And I don't see anybody investing in that building to come down. And I think the sooner that we can get it done,
Similarly, the Newell building, and I commend Andrea for her work on that, and the St. Lawrence County Industrial Development Agency. You know, there's a building that's not in our downtown, that's up on a hill and out of sight. It was an old industrial building, and you know, $1 million been put into that building to restore, to put a new roof on the entire thing, and that's a lot bigger roof. And in addition, you know, structural repairs were done to the roof before the new roof was put on, and that's being put back into use. And I wish, yeah, in hindsight and Monday morning quarterbacking, I guess maybe, you know, we should have worked toward saving this building, and I still want to work toward saving this building. And I invite anybody that, you know, is of a like mind, to help out. So.
May I speak? Personally, I mean, I think that this building is in a place where we could use it for a lot of other resources. I think we're looking towards redoing a downtown, and we've got eateries going in. You know, there's gonna be a movie theater, we're close to the river, our pool is right there. That's a perfect area, in my opinion, for some type of family gathering zone. Put a splash pad in. You have easy access to bathrooms at the Dubisky Center. So we can't lock ourselves into what it used to be, or always making things what they were. At some point in time, when something looks like this, we need to move forward. And I just think that, you know, I would love to see, you know, once the building is down, hopefully, what we could do with that area, because it is a nice piece of property in a nice area that we could market.
We should have addressed it years ago, and when it fell in our laps, we should have went in and checked the roof and done the repairs in the roof and kept it in order, but.
I would like to state, in the interest of time, in the interest of time, I'm not going to ask Andrea to come up and address this. You do have a handout from her, that does delineate all the efforts we have made. So to say that we have not done anything is not accurate.
Well, if had a roof been maintained on that, and I'm not saying, I'm not sure where, that was lost, but, that takes some time. And I just think in the future, that's something we need to look at is right away, check the roof, repair the roof, and that gives you time. But this building has, if we give up this money and we don't get money to restore it, and it continues to deteriorate, it's affecting the Blevins building, very prosperous building for our town right now, 20 people. They're having issues with odor and from the water from this building. I think it's time to act on that.
Just to be clear, we don't have the $500,000 now. It's a grant application.
Yes.
And it could have been a $500,000 grant application to put a roof on it.
But we've got floors also.
Yeah, no, I know, but this is my point.
Yeah.
I respect your commitment to the city's history, John, and years ago I wanted to put money into the roof, and the whole time they've told me the last 10 years I've sat here that it's too late, and now I know it's too late. But I do respect your commitment to the city's history and getting that roof on, and like I said, years ago I wanted to do this, and couldn't get it done, so now it's too late. Sometimes you just stand there and watch.
It goes a little further beyond the roof. I mean,
Yeah.
You've got a drive-it system. That's a system that goes over a brick facade that's put on there that's dilapidating, that's falling apart, and you wonder about the moisture inside these bricks,
Absolutely.
the actual brick building. You've got a portion of the foundational wall heaving out outside of it, with many holes along the system. We would need somebody with a very comprehensive plan, in my opinion, to come forward to salvage this building and put it back onto the rolls as a prosperous building. But it would have to have somebody that has a lot of money to burn and would want to do it, even with somewhat of a grant prospect. I just don't see the feasibility.
Just remember, when it's down, and it's a big 3-story building. There's not much in our downtown, so.
Further discussion? Steve?
I go here?
Yes.
I just want to say one thing. I find it ironic that, we don't blink an eye. Both Black Bridge and this building were in 2006, but yet we don't blink at the $2 million to go in the Black Bridge. That, given it's good for exercise and whatever, but that building restored would bring in revenue. And just like the mayor said, you look at the Blevins family, what they've done, who's to say they might not be interested, if it was some grant money to just get it so it's sustainable. It seems odd to me that, we're looking at something to walk across and something that could actually bring in revenue, and yet we just walk at it, we go back to urban renewal, and let's just tear it down.
Any further discussion? Would city clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Scamperly?
No.
Mayor Skelly?
No.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
No.
Counselor Powers?
No.
Counselor Reish?
Yes.
Deneg?
And this brings us to old business. Does anyone have any old business?
Yes, I would, well, I don't know whether it's old business or whether it's new business. I'm gonna refer to it as old business because there was an agenda item for the sale of property to John Wade. They got defeated, and I would ask that the process begin to do that properly. So that we can set up a process for advertising and public bids for that building,
For city-owned property owned by the city.
for that particular building.
Yep, we'll queue it up for the next agenda. Yep.
And I guess I would also treat this as new business as well. It would be my preference, and I would ask the other council members what their preference is in terms of with the resignation of our city attorney. My preference would be to go out for a request for proposal to get proposals from other attorneys to be the city attorney for the city of Ogdensburg.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we'll get that going.
Is that consensus? Okay, we could have that for the next agenda as well, that'd be,
So we have consensus? Thank you.
yeah.
Let me ask you this, do you want me to try to get the RFP to you so you can give me your individual comments so that we could finalize it? Because we're gonna be without a city attorney for a little while.
Can you do that?
Well, I'm just asking for, feedback to a question here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm out of here.
I'm a little concerned about what we do.
So in an RFP, do you ask for a full-time employee or somebody
No.
that would work per diem?
No, you're asking them to give you what
Hiring freeze,
arrangement,
Okay.
what arrangement they
would
would
like to do.
want.
Okay.
So would it be a request for qualification? No, would
Yeah,
it be a request
yeah,
for
it actually
proposals?
would be a question.
But we also want their background experience and their proposed hourly rate.
Yes,
So,
yeah, you can do that with an RFQ.
it's my understanding that Canton did this recently.
Okay, good.
So if you wanna
Sure.
call them up and get theirs, no
Yep.
need to reinvent the wheel. and,
Perfect.
If it works for us as a city, I don't know.
Okay. All right, I'll get that going.
Any other old business, new business?
I have one, it was from last year, Sarah. We talked about blighted properties and upkeep of properties and certain municipalities that have done some legislative work here at the table to make sure that they maintain certain aspects of the property and to be able to levy. I believe Brazier did it, Brazier, and there's one in Jefferson County as well. Not looking to heap more stuff onto your plate, but I can flip you a couple articles where we're looking.
Yeah, no, yeah, that'd be great, because I did have them at one point. But if you could flip them to
I will.
me, yeah. I think I'm gonna want input from planning and codes. And of course, one of the issues is gonna be enforcement.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
Okay. It for old, new business? This brings us to items for discussion. The first item for discussion is a council workshop.
I would like to just, see the one that was canceled last week, rescheduled at some point, so that way we can try to get some, obviously there's a lot of ideas floating around. I think trying to get everybody together to discuss some of those ideas, might be beneficial. There's consensus of council to schedule one to replace the one that was canceled last week.
We gotta do our doodle again.
I doodle poll, yeah, I like those.
Sounds good.
Kathy, would you mind helping us out with that?
Absolutely, sure. Any suggestions? Days of the week, dates?
Mondays,
I know Mike had said that in previous.
Thursdays?
Mondays, Thursday afternoons, or Fridays?
Thursdays, yeah, that's fine.
Thursdays are tough because I'm usually traveling.
Okay.
I mean, Friday or?
Friday can work. And I'm not opposed to a weekend gig either.
I'll send that out.
Generally, workshops pertain to one particular issue that,
I think that as a council, we have quite a few issues, and I was just thinking that I would like to see more of an open dialogue between the 7 of us up here to try to come together and see, even talk goals. It's very hard to meet with people because we can't have a quorum. I was thinking more along the lines of ideas, planning that we foresee for our immediate and more distant future to get everyone on the same page. So, or maybe we can, so we know, what are our goals, what are we working on to come together as something like that. Because I think, long-term planning, short-term planning, if we want to use that as a council workshop, if you want to put 1 or 2 things on it, but I think that's a good starting point. We've done that previously when we've had new councils come in. I know when I started, in the first 2 months, we had a council workshop and just talked ideas, things that we would like to see going forward, things like that.
just as long as it doesn't devolve into things that are generally handled, as this last one did. There were discussions about putting this on and putting that on for discussion that were more appropriately handled at a council meeting than at a workshop. So that's my only concern.
Okay, the second item for discussion is council requests. Does anyone have any items for discussion?
What is council request?
I don't know, it's down here.
I don't know either.
I
It might have
had
done
wanted
those.
to do
Sarah
some
put that in.
follow-up with all of you on items I've been working on and need clarification on, but in the interest of time, we'll defer that till next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. And this brings us to citizen participation. Yes. I'm not so sure about your partner though, but you can, I'm just kidding.
No, we have opposite opinions on this. I'm just going to the bathroom.
This is actually live tonight. Shocking. Hi, I'm Cheryl Lattiser. I think you've seen me here many times. It's more just a comment. I realize that the building on Ford Street is in terrible disrepair. However, I've lived in Ogdensburg long enough to see many of our old, beautiful buildings torn down with urban renewal, and that whole mess is on the other side of these old, beautiful buildings. I just think it's a shame that we take away the history of this place to leave. We already have a vacant lot in between those buildings. Now we're going to have 2. And I think the idea of a splash pad is a great idea. I don't think that that would be a really good spot for it. That's my own personal opinion. It's just a real shame that we lose so much of our history and that we don't plan what it is that we need to do to preserve what it is we have. And I really strongly encourage you to really look at what it is we do have and how we can preserve it. And if we want to talk about our waterfront, which is our prize, the way the marina was constructed before we're doing what it is we're doing now, in my estimation, was a horrible mistake. We built this beautiful Dubisky Center, and if you look at the outside of that Dubisky Center, it's a mess. The pavers are crumbling. The flower boxes or the flower beds that are there are full of weeds and being destroyed. It's a mess. We need to take care of what we have. We really, really, really need to do that. And if we want to preserve some of the history that we still have here, then I think we really need to look at how we can do that. New is great, but what we have, we need to treasure. That's my comment, my 2 cents.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there is a need for executive session to discuss current litigation, which there will be no action, and I need to recuse myself. I will need a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second.
Would the clerk
Aye.
please call roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Yeah, abstain?
Counselor Dilaba,
Yeah.
Counselor Fisher, Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
Adjourn the meeting from executive session.
Oh.